Well, 9 days ago, I stood here and introduced a panel of journalists in a program I called Straight from the Trail 1. 9 days have gone by, and it seems like the political world has been remade yet again. John McCain went over the top and secured his nomination for the Republican Party for the White House bid, and his last major rival dropped out. On the Democratic side, Hillary Clinton was on the rails and now is feeling a new surge of momentum. And doubts have been raised, yes, many of them by the Clinton campaign, about Obama that seemed to hurt him in Ohio and Texas. Still, from my calculations, he has a strong lead in pledged delegates, and the math and the proportional representation that the Democratic Party has built into this process seem to suggest that he could still finish out with the lead. These are some of the things we'll talk about tonight, and we'll, of course, get to your questions as quickly as possible. Let me start with our panel tonight with some introductions. Lynn Sweet is the Washington bureau chief for the Chicago Sun-Times. She writes a column and an influential blog for the paper. It's a blog that I, whenever I want to know something about Senator Obama's campaign, I make sure to check it out. She's been covering Senator Obama since he arrived in Washington, a noted authority on the campaign. She even went with him on his trip to Africa, which we got to see a picture from in the last days. Sweet has covered politics and government from Chicago's wards to the White House. In the spring of 2004, she was named a fellow at Harvard University's Institute of Politics at the Kennedy School. And those of you who know about our programming here at the Dole Institute, we kind of steal a lot of our ideas from the Kennedy School and the IOP. Sweet has covered the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians, and in 1995, she broke a story on the perks the Clinton White House offered major donors. A Chicago native, Sweet has a master's from Northwestern's Medill School and received her undergraduate degree from the University of California at Berkeley. She's former president of the Washington Press Club Foundation and a member of the Gridiron Club, which holds its big dinner this weekend, right? So we have to bid her farewell tonight. She teaches a course on Washington policy, process, and politics and the press at Medill's Washington program. In the middle, I've known Geoff Earle since, well, birth. He's spent 14 years as a political reporter in Washington, most recently for the New York Post. He assures me he has nothing to do with the paper's headlines. For the past 9 months, he's been covering the Clinton campaign from Iowa to New Hampshire and everywhere else the senator goes. Prior to taking on the Clinton beat, he was an investigative reporter at the Post, covering Homeland Security, Congress, and the White House. Specializing in congressional leadership, he has reported stories including the Republican takeover of Congress in 1994, the impeachment of President Clinton, and the September 11th attacks and their aftermath, writing for publications including The Hill, National Journal, and Congressional Quarterly. His freelance works have appeared in a variety of publications, including The Washington Post and the Chicago Tribune, and he's reported abroad from Germany and Indonesia. He's received fellowships and training awards from the American Council on Germany, Washington University, and Loyola University Law School, and has been a contributing writer for CQ's Guide to U.S. Elections and Politics in America books. He attended the University of Michigan. Finally, Tom Beaumont, who's my hero because he filled in for us at the last minute. He's been the Des Moines Register's chief political reporter since 2002 and has covered presidential politics nearly continuously during that time. He was the primary writer during the Register's coverage of the 2004 Democratic Caucus campaign and most recently led the coverage of the year-long campaign for the 2008 Democratic and Republican caucuses. During the 2008 campaign, Beaumont was a regular on the campaign trail, but also focused on far-reaching enterprise stories that look deep into the candidates' policy positions, statements, and support networks. He has been a featured contributor to CNN, C-SPAN, MSNBC, and Fox News. Before taking his beat at the Register, Beaumont was a Metro General Assignment reporter, focusing on development in Des Moines' western suburbs, which have totally changed since the last time I was in town. Federal court and immigration. Beaumont began his career at the Southern Illinoisian in Carbondale, where he covered courts and politics from 1995 to 1999. To complete our trifecta of the nation's best public universities, Beaumont earned a bachelor's degree in poli-sci and a master's in journalism from the University of Wisconsin at Madison. Welcome to the three of you. How so much has changed in the last 9 days. And yet, I still, I have on my bookmark of my page on my computer, the Slate delegate calculator. And if you mess around with those numbers, if you make Hillary Clinton win out in places like Wyoming and North Carolina, it still doesn't seem to me that she catches up too much to Senator Obama in the pledged delegate count. Is it actually the truth that nothing's really changed in the last 9 days, or have the fortunes of the candidates in the Democratic side of the race changed substantially? And I'll throw that out to the three of you.
Well, I'll jump in. I think I just jumped. First of all, thank you very much for having me here. It was an honor. And I'm delighted to have, what's going to be kind of cool here tonight is that Geoff and I cover the two sides of the coin. You know, we work for big city papers where he is Clinton-centric and I am Obama-centric. So you have a worldview that is very specialized from both of us. Plus, of course, we do see the big picture, but we can be macro and micro at the same time. But here's what's changed. What changed is that Ohio and Texas did not wipe out Hillary Clinton. You ended up with the tie. You kind of freeze the picture. And that, the technical term for that is a big deal. She could not have survived big losses in those two states, so that the delegate count isn't what's important right now. What's important is that not only has she survived for another day, but for a short time she prevailed, and there is a mathematical possibility that if everything falls her way, she could catch up. Very difficult, but the delegate counters right now, of course, are taking a pause. We have an election in Wyoming this Saturday, who would have thought? And then we'd have this long march to Pennsylvania coming up. And let me tell you how this isn't political time. There is almost as much time between now and April 22nd as there has been since Iowa. Remember that, Tom?
Yeah. Long time ago.
Ancient
as
history.
Between when we had the first balloting in Iowa, the caucus in Iowa, until now. That is a long time. It's going to be something that I think most of us who cover this have just never seen before in how things might unfold. And it's unfolding at a time where, what's different now? What's different now is that we know who the Republican nominee is going to be. So there is a whole different flavor for the weeks ahead of us than there have been for the weeks behind us.
And the pressure has really been taken off Hillary Clinton. And by the way, thank you also, and I hope I don't unnerve anyone by if I sound too much like my brother. I'm the younger one.
They sound alike, they look alike.
But you know, things were looking bleak for Hillary Clinton. I mean, she had this very long drought of in another lifetime of politics over between February 5th and Texas. You know, Barack Obama won everything. His money was tripling her. He had all of this sort of hard to describe and quantify momentum, such that you know, it's not just good on TV and in the newspaper, but with the political professionals and the fundraisers and the people who donate, he has very much looked like the winner. Now, whether he is or not, I don't know, but with this change in Ohio and Texas, Hillary Clinton, she bought herself yet another life. She's got a chance to raise more money, and she raised $4 million or more in the last couple of days, and that's been coming in. She's got people, these super delegates, these mysterious members of Congress, former governors, her husband, 21-year-old Wisconsin students at his university. These people who get to have a huge say in the election, they're going to step back and take a second look, and they're going to take a deep breath and say, well, wait a minute, maybe I don't want to go with the loser, or maybe I don't want to even be the person deciding this election. So Clinton has bought time, and time is what she needs in order to do the other things that she's focusing on, which is to, you know, muddy up Obama's record and you know, challenge these complicated systems in Florida and Michigan, and just somehow find a way to win and get in there.
Unlike my colleagues, I am fighting a losing battle with irrelevance, having essentially said farewell to the day-to-day campaign trail coverage about 2 months ago. So when I think about what has changed in light of Tuesday, I think of a wider angle. One thing that I didn't think that we would be hearing reporters and pundits say at this point in the race is that the junior senator from Illinois failed to knock out Hillary Clinton on Tuesday. I don't think anybody would have thought that a year, we covered this race for a straight-on year in Iowa before the caucuses. Nobody would have thought that Obama would be in this position. So, true, Senator Clinton has some momentum. She needed those wins on Tuesday. But I think that we're framing the race in terms of Obama's inability to knock out Clinton is really astounding and speaks to his strengths. Obviously, he had strength here in Kansas.
We actually had our first Straight from the Trail event during the last debate, so it was 9 days ago. And that's the debate where Senator Clinton referred to that Saturday Night Live sketch where the Tim Russert and Brian Williams asked Barack Obama if he wanted another pillow and if he was comfortable, and we're really hard on Hillary Clinton. Since we have people here who've covered all these candidates, did Barack Obama get a bit of a free pass from the National Press Corps? I certainly don't see that on your particular blog, but don't talk about your coverage maybe, but wider. And also, was Senator Clinton's campaign able to work the media refs enough to get you guys, the press corps, to take a harder stance against Obama and maybe do her campaign's bidding in the last 9 or 10 days?
Well, if I could jump in with a compliment for Lynn, I know, having read the transcript, that she was the reporter when Obama was trying to end a press conference just a few days ago, saying, "Hey, that was only 8 questions." Or no, saying, "Please, answer these questions." He said, "Hey, I've already answered 8." So she's one of the people taking it to him. I think he has gotten a much better ride than Senator Clinton. I think a lot of the story that he has represented has been this new movement in politics, these massive crowds, and this ability to knock the front runner down a few pegs. And so I think he has escaped some of the harsh scrutiny, and there's some merit to what Senator Clinton says, in that she, if she says anything just slightly off message or slightly off key, she gets hammered. And so I think her play to the refs, it got people asking tougher questions, people who had maybe gone a little soft on it.
I have a few points I'd like to make, Your Honor. I thought from the moment Obama got in, and even before, that there was a scenario where he could be as strong as he was. And maybe, he is very smart, the people around him are very smart. They would not have gotten into this if they didn't see a path, and therefore I have not been surprised. He had to catch a lot of breaks along the way, and he made a lot of them, and that's why we're at the point we're at today. One of those breaks he got has been a fairly positive to very positive national press that has put him on the roll that even let him run for president. For example, the months preceding his official announcement in February are important to look at if you wonder why we're sitting here today. He had a wave of favorable publicity in this trip to Africa. That only set up the next wave of favorable publicity for the book tour he went on for his second book. And most of it was just a bit to me of the telling and retelling of the Obama story, the same narrative. So off that book tour, so you have a big role from Africa and a bigger role on the book tour, which actually served as the exploratory campaign. Because if you could draw the kind of attention and crowds he had on something where they have to pay to get your book, he understood the drawing power he had. Then right after that, he segued with a nice overlap between the book tour and the political season that was then heating up in November, where he started raising a lot of money for other people. And he understood then he was drawing in millions of dollars for other people and for the political committees. That set the stage for him to understand in November that, yeah, I could do this. And all that really was predicated by massive favorable publicity, magazine covers. And I want to make a distinction here that I think is important, and I didn't make this one. I think Mark Ambinder of the Atlantic did, was a wonderful blog and wonderful writer and reporter. He thinks that we should make a distinction, and I agree, between the press and the media. What we do is kind of what the press does. We go to events, we report, we make phone calls, we look at documents. The media is Rolling Stone deciding to put Barack Obama on the cover, is Newsweek deciding to put Michelle Obama on the cover. big media decisions. It also helped in image and image management. So I now want to separate some of the terms. When you look at all the rough press treatment and all the rough press conferences that the Clinton, and I will say Clintons plural, have had through the years, compare it to this. The press conference that Senator Obama had on Monday was the first rough one in his entire year of running as a political candidate for the presidency. It was also the first time he had rough questioning in his entire tenure in the Senate. So that's a pretty good run. And when you really look at the issues that we talked to him about, or we had an abbreviated run at, this was not the hardest, most sensitive stuff. So it was a day that might not be significant, was a bit of a turning point now, but certainly speaks to what you're talking about is the press treatment, and that was the first, what you witnessed just last week was probably the first rougher week he's had.
And that came right after the Clintons turned up the heat and challenged us, both Senator Clinton herself and her staff on these conference calls. They specifically called out the media for not going after him, and that somehow sunk in, I guess.
But let me jump in, though, too. Yeah. There is a confluence of events happening that I think that the Clinton campaign benefited from. The tactical decision of the campaign to complain on the record, one. The cultural phenomenon of Saturday Night Live as being a political mover emerged in the last few weeks, where they've taken very funny, very wicked, pretty pro-Clinton look. Then you have the start of the Tony Resco trial in Chicago, which is this political patron and fundraiser for Obama. And then you had the Canadian NAFTA, or as the Clinton campaign calls it, NAFTA-gate, where this economic advisor of Barack Obama, Austin Goolsbee, a name before never named, was barely known outside of economic circles, had a meeting with the Canadian Council in Chicago. What he said and did not say about NAFTA is a matter of dispute. What is not in dispute is that the campaign at first denied the meeting happened. So just think, just at the time that the Clinton campaign wants to complain on the record about some softball treatment, there's the trial of Tony Resco and the bungled handling of the Canadian conversation.
Yeah. Whatever's true or not,
They gave reporters who might felt that they had a little bit of a deficit to make up, it gave them something to do about it.
Tom, you had the candidates all to yourself in Iowa for a year. And to answer the previous line of questioning if you want, but also you mentioned something that you were surprised about, that in March of 2008, you were writing that it's amazing how he couldn't knock her out of the race. But what things that weren't a surprise that you picked up over the last 13 months?
I want to just look at the Register's coverage of Senator Obama over the last year, because we're a strange newspaper, because for most of every 4-year cycle, we're the newspaper of record for a Midwestern state nearby. And then for that 1 year, we are a quasi-national newspaper with the political coverage that we do. We dispatched our troops differently for the 2008 campaign. Wisely, I think. We put individual reporters on the different candidates, and then I, as my colleague said, covered the forest, whereas a lot of my colleagues at the Register covered the individual trees. And so I don't believe, as the Register, and I don't know how many of you followed it online, I don't believe that the Register is guilty of treating Obama lightly, as the national media has been criticized for. We looked at him very intently. He did things differently in Iowa. He did things that reminded some of us of the way Howard Dean campaigned, and Dean having failed to meet expectations in Iowa and having sort of blundered there and then slid after that. We were looking very suspiciously at this guy who was going to invite lots of young people into the caucuses. That's often tried and seldom succeeds in Iowa. It's an older state. We took a look at his statements. His campaign led us into some of the closed events that he was having on the campaign trail, and he said some things that made some news that made people angry. He said nobody has suffered more than the Palestinians. And And he argued that that was taken out of context. We were showing, I think for the first time, that this guy was kind of new at this, and he was trying things different. He was, he had a lot of smart people around him, as Lynn says, but people didn't know him. People in Iowa didn't know Senator Clinton very well either, but she hadn't dug in as much as Senator Obama did early on. So I think that the Register kind of was, if I look at the way the Register treated Senator Clinton versus the way they treated Senator Obama, I think the Register was a little bit tougher on Obama. So then comes this argument that the press has been kind to Senator Obama. Lest we overstate the influence of the Des Moines Register, Senator Obama won the caucuses quite handily. And Senator Clinton finished what a lot of people said was a disappointing but close third. So since Iowa, I see the race a lot differently than I did before it, because it has made Senator Clinton a more combative candidate. She has gone after him more. It's gotten a lot more, there's been a lot more fireworks since then.
It appears to me, just watching at home, that they're both much stronger candidates since Iowa too. Obama, especially in debating, Clinton certainly in some of the ways she handles things as well. On this stage 9 days ago, I had my friend Jill Zuckman, who has spent a lot of time with Senator John McCain on the Straight Talk Express. Can't believe I remember what these things are called. The Huckabus, the helicopter, but somehow the Straight Talk Express is there.
Romney Mobile.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Oh, worst one. That's lame.
Or Mittmobile.
Okay, so the kind of access that the National Press Corps has to Senator McCain is famously very close. He holds forth in that bus, and he is it's like running commentary on the scenery going by. I want to hear from your inside stories about these other candidates that we've been talking about. If things are as different as they seem on Senator Clinton's plane, on Senator Obama's plane, and you, of course, have covered them all, so you might know a little bit more about the whole gang.
Senator McCain didn't campaign a lot in Iowa, though people make the mistake if they think that he didn't campaign for the 2008 caucuses at all in Iowa. He made the decision early in his campaign for 2008 that he was actually going to set up shop in Iowa. Caused a lot of interest from us because we knew that he didn't campaign there in 2000. He's got a record that is not necessarily friendly to Iowa. He was blindsided by the impact of his immigration position among the right wing. But sure, the bus came, and we all got to sit on the bus and listen to him, as you say, hold forth. It didn't happen that often. It didn't happen as often as it did, I think, during the 2000 campaign in New Hampshire, for instance. But I'll do just a real quick access, just a whipping around the horn with the access. The Des Moines Register enjoys very good access as far as the candidates go, probably better than any newspaper of its size in the country gets during this process. Senator Clinton was very easy to get a hold of when we needed to have an interview on the phone about something pressing that was going on in the national press. We could generally get her on the phone. Same with Senator Obama, especially if we had recently gotten an interview with Senator Clinton. But there was just so much to cover this time that we got a lot of access. But there was never enough access, just because there were, at any given point, 15 candidates in both parties running. So I'm sure some interesting anecdotes will pop to mind after my colleagues take a crack at it.
Well, for Senator Clinton, there's before Iowa and there's after Iowa. And in Iowa, where I had the good fortune to spend a month camped out in Des Moines, Senator Clinton thought, to a large measure, she didn't need the national media, or rather, she wanted to try to run around us. I think she saw a lot of us as an impediment to her win and to her message. And so she would do everything she could to keep her distance from us. If she flew on a plane, she would fly in a separate plane. If she had to take a bus, she'd take a separate bus. Her staff would give they would give her daily schedule of public events would be bare bones. And if she did an interview with another organization, you would often only find out, secondhand, thirdhand, through luck. And she would give occasional press conferences, but they were rare. and she didn't want us to talk much. And even her town hall meetings, it came out, were somewhat staged in several occasions when the people asking questions weren't even real people, they were plants. So,
are there any here tonight?
Yeah, Clinton plants. I see some in the front row. And then what
Where's
happened?
that person I sent over?
And then she got her clock cleaned, and the world changed for us. And I see it as the New York Post is a national paper, but it's the hometown paper, and we didn't get half the love that much smaller market paper than the Register got. So then after Iowa, all of a sudden, Senator Clinton realized that her strategy, while it might have made some sense, it wasn't working out for her, because I think there was probably some resentment that built up between her people and the press, and that wasn't working to her advantage. And all of a sudden, she decided that the American people, through us, needed to see that she wasn't just an in-the-clouds figure or a prima donna or a celebrity, but a real person. So it was incredible, the difference. She did town hall meetings where she took questions for over an hour, maybe close to 2 hours. She would do press conferences with us. She started riding on the plane with us and did a charm offensive. She even brought in Chelsea Clinton to do a charm offensive on the collective press. And I think it's worked, and one reason I think it's worked is that she stuck with it. I'll backtrack for 1 second to talk about a great story in the Register that I think had a big impact on Senator Clinton. It was a story about how she wasn't taking questions in the final days of the campaign. I think she was being so cautious, she didn't want to risk anything. And people saw that story, and it just shows you how powerful the Register is. People saw that story, and voters started talking to me about it, caucus course. They said, Senator Clinton, I noticed she doesn't really take any questions, and I'm bothered by that. So the name of the game now is a lot more accessed, although we still get frustrated there's not more.
Let me tell you some stories. In Iowa, Senator Obama had his own bus. In New Hampshire, Senator Obama had his own bus. In every state where there's been a bus, he's had his own. I actually think it's the same bus. The Obama approach has been to try to keep a distance from the National Press Corps. Now, I have no complaint at all that the candidates devote a lot of time to local press. I respect it, and I've been a local reporter. I've been on the other end when I haven't done national politics, and this is a big deal, and that they are contending in states. My point is sometimes that what you have now finally, I think, is a balance where both Clinton and Obama are forced for different reasons to deal with local and national. The schedule of Senator Obama, it started out, it had some of the same issues. The reporters who covered Obama, the same issues that the Clinton reporters did, that the schedule is really just a few items that the campaign wants you to know. It might not come as a bit surprise to you that these schedules are very highly managed. There's a lot of image management, and sometimes the press operations just feel the less you know, the better, and of course the press thinks you should know more. I basically have a position that we should at least know some of the basic movements of a candidate. After some complaint, we on the Obama campaign got his fundraisers on. I mean, I complained very strongly that a fundraiser where you have an invitation out is something that should be on a schedule. I'm not saying I would like to go and attend everything, but I'm not even at that point. My first point, I am at that point in terms of argument, but it took a lot just to get on the schedule what city the candidate and his wife were going to, and finally they did. And then as time went on, they did put down some of the TV events. But let me give you just some recent examples. Here it is, I'm on the bus and the plane, so you might think I know everything, and often you don't. It might be by now 2 Sundays ago, the campaign, at the end of the day, sent out a transcript of an event that Obama had with 100 people in Cleveland to talk about, it was Jewish American activists, or I'm not exactly sure, it might have been civic leaders, but the point was I get a transcript over an event with 100 people. Now, when you talk about campaign events, I understand some things are private. and I understand some things are public. I'm not sure the exact number of where you cut it off, but I think maybe 5, 10, 15, 20, you could argue is private. I kind of think when you get to 100, it should at least be on a candidate schedule that the event occurred. We didn't know that until after it happened. And it was pretty significant because it's one of the issues with Senator Obama is his working to capture, different constituencies, and the Jewish constituency is an important one. So that's one thing we didn't know about. But here's the next example I want to give you where I could say, boy, did I feel like a jerk. A bunch of us reporters are sitting on the bus one day recently, and unbeknownst to us, Obama, with a backdrop of 40 volunteers, is taping a segment for the Ellen DeGeneres show. The campaign didn't even tell us that. Now, if it was a private interview, if it was a scoop for Ellen, that's fair enough. I could see that there was no obligation necessarily to tell us, but since the show was going to be on the next day, since within a few hours Ellen's own press department issued a press release, and since there were 40 people, that would be like keeping this event a secret. If somebody said, Lynn, what are you doing today? And I just said, well, I have an event. I may or may not tell you I have something to do. You're all free to go. This is not a secret. So that's some of the frustration I have and the reporters have covering Obama. He comes back on the plane more. I think he's aware that there's been some complaints. And, oh, yes, he had that press conference the other day, too.
Right. I certainly saw a picture in the paper this week on the plane. So someone...
he's been on...
Yeah, so...
Right, so and that's pretty good.
Yeah, can I add one quick
Sure, sure.
Well, there's something interesting that goes on is that the two campaigns are able to use each other as leverage.
Yeah.
Because there's been big arcane discussions about what the ground rules should be when these candidates come back and talk to reporters on planes. And the substance isn't that important, but what's interesting is that when there was one set of rules on the Clinton campaign and Obama wasn't doing it, and the Obama people were able to use that in order to say to their candidate, hey, the Clinton's giving them this level of access, you've got to bring it up a notch. And so, we're so outgunned in this fight, we try to do what we can to hang together on that.
Can I just make another point before we move on to another question? To go back to the first question about press. One of the realities of life Hillary Clinton has had to live with since day one of her campaign for the Senate is the New York press. You have Jeff's Post, the Daily News, Newsday. You have 3 aggressive news organizations. They're published in the media capital of the world. They're edgy. They are hard news oriented. And few public figures can survive without getting their, without getting a little, what's the word? A little...
bloodied?
That could be one, just to get the treatment. Whatever you call the New York treatment. Good, bad, it's never indifferent. When you're working in the city where you have the Post, the Daily News, Newsday. And they send their reporters on the campaign trail. So every day, Hillary Clinton's campaign has had 3 aggressive, hard news-oriented, edgy reporters. Obama has not had those 3 papers on his campaign bus and plane, and I think that alone is a reason why you have a little different treatment.
Wow. Actually, I'm going to go back to Lynn's first answer to my first question, where he said there are these 7 weeks, yawning gap of time between now and the next major primary in Pennsylvania. That suggests to me that a lot of the coverage that you guys are going to be writing about is going to be about things like, well, we'll get Wyoming and Mississippi, but then there's going to be a lot of the stuff about the superdelegates, which I think Geoff was right to refer to them as mysterious, because a lot of people don't know who they are or what powers they have. A great Huckabee moment on Saturday Night Live the week before was when he said, oh, well, maybe the superdelegates will help me get the Republican nomination, and they told him, actually, that's in the other party. Republicans don't have those. Okay, so I guess the big question for the 3 of you is what's going to happen with these 800 some odd superdelegates? It's last time I checked, I was actually surprised how much of the gap Obama had closed. It's about, what, 50 or 60?
How many are still uncommitted?
About 300.
Yeah, so we're about 250
Any of them
Clinton.
here tonight?
250 for Clinton, 200 or so for Obama.
300 uncommitted.
Okay, and 300 uncommitted, more or less. I mean, today I heard from my reporter brother that 2 more came out of the woodwork for Obama, which I thought was kind of surprising. The Thursday after a bad Tuesday. And it's been that kind of trickle. Is that going to keep happening, or?
I suspect that each side has some superdelegates
In their back pocket?
in a room with a lock on them, to be unlocked if and when they're needed, or to defrost them. Because you don't, one of the Obama campaign has been very, very smart on how they hold back. Quick example, John Kerry gave his endorsement right after New Hampshire and South Carolina, so after that big loss. And what a great way to regain some momentum. By the next day, we flew from New Hampshire to South Carolina, and boom, you had Kerry. So I think some of these superdelegates some of them, they might have known. Some of the few, they're looking for switchers because they can do that. And I would think they have some people lined up. They had some of the Edwards folks who were freed up once Edwards dropped out, and they got the converts. So I think it's a mix right now of planned and unplanned announcements.
And are people going to continue to announce?
I'm guessing that for the true free agents, there might be a freeze right now.
Yeah. I think if of these undecideds, and we really don't, we're down to the holdouts, the people who, for whatever reason, don't want to be public. I'm of the mind that if they were for Clinton, they're more likely to have been out by now. I mean, the Clinton organization has been really pushing for a year to gather in everybody they can. And we saw this trickle while Obama was on a hot streak. Well, more than a trickle, because you're right, it was something, I think it was over 40, as he narrowed the gap. And I think if Clinton had at least something in her pocket to have countered the image that he had all this superdelegate behind-the-scenes momentum, she would have come out with it. For example, after this devastating switch of John Lewis to Obama, Clinton came up with somebody down in Texas who switched the other way. So they would want to counter this. And then even after Clinton's big wins, Obama had, I think it was 2 one day into the next. So what that says to me, of course, we're all stabbing in the dark, but I think there's a mass of people out there who want to be for Obama, who think he's the better candidate, and who think that he's the one that can help them keep their jobs. But they're a little scared, and they're cautious, and they don't want to go, they just don't want to bet on the loser. And so they're looking for a reason to come out. I think they're more likely to be looking for a reason to come out for him, and he missed a big opportunity to give it to them on Tuesday.
Everything that happens in Iowa is smaller. So I look at the universe of superdelegates from Iowa. There are 12 of them, 13. The last will be elected at the state convention in June. Most of them are committed. Most of them are committed to. Most of them are committed. There's 4 who are not committed. The senior, most significant one among them is Tom Harkin. You may recall that Harkin endorsed Howard Dean at a critical point in the 2004 campaign, and he has been, very neutral. I think
learned his lesson.
Yes, I think
and he was at the I Have a Scream speech.
Oh yes, if you recall, holding Howard Dean's coat, not a great moment in his history. But I think a lot of the undecideds. There's only 4, like I said. 2 of them were Edwards supporters, and they're just holding fire. The other than Senator Harkin, is the state party chairman, who is a Harkin protege, and so he's obviously going to take his cue from Senator Harkin. And I think the point that Geoff makes is very good, that Senator Obama is somebody that you would think that a progressive or liberal, whatever you want to call Senator Harkin, would like to endorse, but is just waiting to see what happens.
Before I leave superdelegates, because I'm too into this probably, but whose argument is better? The Obama campaign's meta-argument that superdelegates, when they decide the uncommitted ones, are going to have to support the votes of Democrats in caucuses and primaries. In other words, superdelegates shouldn't overturn the will of the Democratic electorate, or the Clinton campaign, which I think very carefully suggests that superdelegates are there to make sure that the voters don't choose them wisely, make a mistake. They both sound pretty good to me.
Oh, is it my turn?
No, you can go in any order. I don't want to make...
Because here's why.
Because Hillary complained about getting the lead-off question every time.
Well, here's why I don't want to answer it first, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because I'm not sure which argument... I don't think there's a right argument here, but there's a lot of I called this in the column I wrote a few days ago that the Obama campaign is running a PSYOPs, military term for psychological operation here, to somehow convey the notion that you have to follow the will of the people, that you are somehow wrong if you don't follow the popular vote. And that is a psychological, political initiative that, was getting some steam until they had that stop from, everyone kind of just hit the pause button right now with Tuesday's vote. And there is no right answer here, because I think the right answer for a superdelegate has really what to do with who they are. If you're a local mayor with a very solid standing and you're not up for election for a few years, you have a different set of reality to deal with. If you're a DNC member and you're on your way out, you might feel more free. If you're a senator like Harkin, who has to have some very big other considerations.
Yeah.
So I think the idea that there's one answer for everybody negates the reality that these superdelegates came to their positions through very different routes, and this meta, and I like using that word for this, it just doesn't necessarily apply, because they have different reasons for wanting to get to decisions. I think the idea that these are the senior people in the party does have some weight. Let me tell you why I think there is a point here. You have primaries in the nation where people are invited to come in who really aren't Democrats, independents and Republicans, and that's okay. The superdelegates are the Democrats who were there yesterday, they're there today, and they'll be there tomorrow. So I don't think that there's much of an argument to say that they necessarily have to follow the popular vote, because in many states, the popular vote isn't necessarily made up of the diehard Democrats who really are the core of the party activists.
And the other, I agree with Lynn that it's a confounding question. And one problem is, let's say you're a superdelegate and you want to represent the will of the people. Well, what's that? You could be a lawmaker in a congressional district that went for Obama in a state that went for Clinton. So is your obligation to the people who vote in your district, or is it to your state? And some of these people are torn up over this. I talked to a staff member for a U.S. senator who doesn't want to aggravate African American constituents, who comes, who has a state that went for Clinton, and this person's leanings, if I had to guess, might be towards Obama. So it's very tough. We probably need to distinguish between the members of Congress, who are the biggest bloc, 435 in the House and 100 in the Senate, and people who are the DNC members and the unelected people, because the people on the Hill, they really need to think about, if they don't vote their constituents, they might lose their jobs. And I am troubled by the anonymous figures, because this is not it's a reform, but it's not a democratic reform. And I'm troubled that someone who's a DNC member, or a chair of some county party, nobody really knows who they are, and there's no way for the public to sanction them. Yeah, there's no. I mean, if they vote out of step with the vast majority of even the American public, is the third factor, state, district, U.S. popular vote, let's say. There's no way to sanction them, and there's no control.
I'll tell an Iowa story, because there's only a certain number. There's only 12 superdelegates in Iowa that we know of, and that last one will be elected in June. The governor of Iowa last month, Chet Culver, he's a relatively new Democrat governor, he came out for Senator Obama. And he had been neutral throughout the campaign. His wife had endorsed John Edwards before the caucuses. And so I thought it was interesting that Chet Culver endorsed Obama for this reason. All of the key political advisors to Chet Culver in Iowa were Clinton people. His major fundraisers, his key advisors, and Chet Culver isn't necessarily known for thinking real independently. So I thought, Chet's making a lot of people angry by making this decision in his inner circle. And then it took me a day to realize that Chet Culver's father, Senator John Culver, was roommates at Harvard with Ted Kennedy. Ted Kennedy is an Obama supporter.
Wow.
And told John
Right.
to have his son endorse
And actually,
Senator Obama. And so there
he's
are...
on the board of the Kennedy School IOP, of the IOP there.
John does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very
And so
There's
there
that
are...
Cambridge connection,
Yeah.
Boston connection.
So there are all these little connections that we can't see that...
But wouldn't it also make sense politically to realize how popular Obama was in Iowa, too, and just for his own survival?
It's
even
true, and it's a
his own advisors,
generational
you could
thing.
say, look at what's the downside here.
Right. It's a generational thing as well. All of the people that Senator Clinton has as superdelegates from Iowa are generally the kind of the institutional...
Tom Vilsack.
Yeah, Tom Vilsack, Christy Vilsack, Bonnie Campbell, the former Attorney General. But that, and Leonard Boswell, a congressman who's in his 70s. But so there's sort of a pretty clear generational break in that as well.
I want to get to the audience's questions, which will be better than mine. So I'll leave Michigan and Florida and stuff for them. But I was shocked to hear Hillary Clinton this week talk about the Obama-Clinton ticket. We just have to figure out whose name is on top. Is she seriously considering that, or is she just trying to appear like she's a uniter, not a divider? She's making nice. And then, actually, if I could get your just thoughts on McCain's running mate, which is obviously going to be a huge issue for the Republican side as well. I feel like we haven't done much Republican talk because it's boring because it's over. Even though that was one of the great stories of the last 4 years, that John McCain is Lazarus.
When I saw that, I thought instantly of Senator Clinton's debate performance, where at the end she said, got a huge applause line. She said, "I just want to say I am so proud to be here with Senator Obama, and either one of us will make history." And so to see these two things together, you've got to think that she is addressing an issue. And I don't know exactly what it is, but I think she knows that Senator Obama has tapped into something that's very powerful. And she needs to, she's always looking towards November if she is the nominee. She's going to need to find a way to bring these people along, to keep them in the system, and to keep them from going nuts. So I think she at least wants the public image to be that that there's this understanding and there's this some level of affection, even while her people are kneecapping Obama, and while she increasingly ratchets up the rhetoric because she's got to do that. So now, whether it's sincere, I think there's another level of it too, because whether she wants to or not, I very much doubt that she does, but I think that if she emerges as the nominee, I think there's going to be extraordinary pressure on her to keep him, to put him on the ticket. So she might also be acknowledging reality. What do you?
Well, I just want to say, to paraphrase Senator Clinton, that no matter what happens at the end of this discussion tonight, no matter what questions you might be asking, we're going to be fine.
Thank you for that.
Now, back to the...
And we're going to make history.
The appeal of Obama is such that I think that if you want to be president, why not get one of the most popular political figures in the country on your ticket? Senator Obama has said on the campaign trail that he thinks his supporters, that her supporters, if he were the nominee, would flock to him, but he's not sure that his backers would go to her. And I think it's going to be very hard to explain to some people who are in the process for the first time, especially all the younger voters, all the students on college campuses who have taken this on as sort of a crusade and movement, to understand that if Senator Obama does not become the nominee on what might be considered a technicality, meaning something perfectly legal, but kind of a tough political situation, be it if the superdelegates are the one to decide, if after protracted wrangling, Michigan and Florida delegates, and we could save this for questions, but just to be quick here, if they get some kind of a do-over or get seated something that throws the nomination to Clinton, that will be tougher than to say, let's come together, forget everything, and be on the ticket. I also just doubt that Senator Clinton would want to be on a vice presidential ticket. And politically, I would think that Obama would just have a lot of other choices. I don't know if that's her career path. The decision for her is tougher, and that is if it becomes time, and this is why she got a gift, such a gift of time with this win in Ohio and Texas, because if she now looks like she's going to, if she loses in Pennsylvania big, I think that gives what the clarity that perhaps would be making it obvious. And it's hard to quit when things are murky, by the way. Yeah. Can you imagine being a speechwriter that says, okay, Senator Clinton, you won Iowa, you won Texas, it was just a little narrow, now what do you want to say in your concession speech tonight? You can't do that. So I don't see her at her age necessarily saying that that's how she wants to end her career, when she could have a thriving career in the Senate. If Senator Reid stepped down, she could be in line for majority leader. If you lead the right way, if you haven't alienated the other senators. Right now there are some frayed situations in the Senate where a lot of these relationships are very personal. And you have a divide because the senators now have started taking sides. But who knows, if Obama went on to become president, there's Supreme Court, there's just other stuff out there for her.
Sure.
And she's a little older. Obama, if he steps aside, if it becomes clear that he doesn't get it, for him being the vice president makes sense. He's not up for re-election until 2010. Nothing to lose. Why not?
Right.
I was going to say something. No matter if Senator Clinton is the nominee, I think there's going to be, no matter who she chooses, and Senator Obama would certainly have to weigh this, and I know he would if he were asked to be her vice presidential running mate, that there is going to be a constitutional issue hanging over a Clinton presidency, which is what to do with this former president. I just think that if it is a problem for her campaign, his involvement, his role, his influence, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, I think the idea of a former president being anywhere near an advisor to the sitting president and her spouse, I just think that whatever the choice is for a Clinton running mate, that there is going to be that very unique third person in the corner.
Third wheel. Those are great comments. We have two students, I think, with microphones, Lindsay and Mark. Thank you. If you have a question, please raise your hand. As usual, as we do at the Dole Institute, please do not make a speech. Have Lindsay's question first, here on the left. Go ahead.
Thank you. And first of all, thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. I was watching the Stephanopoulos show last Sunday, and they had operatives from both campaigns on, and they were pursuing that line of questioning about Obama and the Resco stuff and, answer the questions. And then the question came up about Senator Clinton's tax returns and tried to deflect that and kept talking about how they would be released in April. And I was curious, that deadline is coming about a week before the primary on the 22nd. And I'm curious about the reluctance and what you all, particularly those of you who have covered, the New York media that have covered her more extensively in New York, what might be coming in those that could be troublesome for her campaign, and why the reluctance, at least to this point, to release those?
Boy, we can only imagine. It could be nothing, or it could be a treasure trove, or it could be, one thing that I've thought about is that even if it's not a great smoking gun of a reporter's wildest dreams, is not what she wants to be talking about 7 days before Pennsylvania. There's a lot that we don't know about the Clintons' finances. They left the White House virtually as paupers, in great debt from all the investigations they had to endure. And Senator Clinton wrote a book and got an $8 million advance, which is not bad. And her husband can give speeches in the realm of $200,000 a pop. And he's given them all over the world, including places where we have murky relations with oil-producing nations. So what do you get in a report like that? I have no idea, but you might see some governments that would raise some questions where we could ask her on the plane, instead of today, what's your latest spin of the day? We could say, why is your husband making $500,000 from X company in X country, and that might controvert U.S. policy. we've seen how the forms that she's required to file, the disclosure forms as a U.S. Senator, are incredibly vague and bland, and while they encompass her joint wealth with her husband, you really don't learn much. And even those, they come out, and there's always good little stories. You can always pour through those and learn something. And the last, it's more by way of analogy because I don't know what's in it, but I'm thinking, Tom and I were just talking about this 1 month's campaign filing report that the Clinton campaign organization disclosed for how they spent their money in January. And out of that, we had a field day because you learned that they spent $95,000 on sandwiches at a wonderful Hy-Vee grocery chain, and we learned that there's fancy hotels where occasionally staff would stay or the candidate would stay. I mean, they don't want to disclose because it's either embarrassing or it's off message or it's just funny, and so they don't want to go there.
The Obama campaign got up a great line on a conference call. They said, talk about change you can Xerox your tax returns. So using the Senator Clinton's own debate line.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Clinton campaign said that they're going to release the return on or about April 15th, and I think we'll learn if there's a new meaning to on or about pretty soon.
Ouch.
And I love the brilliance of April 15th, right? Because you think, oh yeah, April 15th, that's when my taxes are due. Okay.
That's good. It's a good one. I think Mark has a question over here on the right side. Tom Cox.
Jonathan kind of touched on this earlier, and I don't really know how to phrase questions, so I'll just go Michigan, Florida, your thoughts?
There's talk today that Michigan is considering a firehouse caucus, and from what I understand, there's much more resistance to a do-over in Florida. So, I don't know.
They're expensive, these primaries, aren't they?
Well, so there are different circumstances. The Michigan story is that that Obama, once the state decided to have the election, Obama and Edwards decided to take their names off the ballot. That was a strategic political decision, perhaps a pander to Iowa and New Hampshire. But that was a decision they made. No one made them do it. The DNC did not force them to do it. In Florida is another case because okay, let me just finish on Michigan. In Michigan, the Michigan Democrats wanted to change the date very much, and they had been trying to do it officially and failed. The Florida date changed mainly through the initiative of a Republican Republican governor.
State legislators, yeah.
So, by law, the names of the candidates stayed on the ballot. I actually found the results from Florida fascinating to look at because it's like an enormous straw poll. Just if you don't campaign, if you don't spend money, if you just say, here are 3 names, who do you like from what you know, maybe everybody just Googled a lot, but they seem to make choices. The argument there is that since the Florida Democrats did nothing wrong and all the names are on the ballot, why can't we just kind of paper this over? The reason, by the way, that everybody went along with this plan of sanctions is that I don't think anyone in the party or the principals involved a scenario of the jam that we're in. And my guess is that people thought there would be a conclusive result with clarity so that those states wouldn't necessarily count. And then in a magnanimous gesture in Denver, they would be gavelled in, they would be slapped and said, don't do this again, but here's your seat, and then they would say, we're all for whoever is the winner. So, so each of these states has a different story behind it, and therefore the outcome, if there is indeed a do-over, might be different.
Good point. And there's some kind of a leadership vacuum which is weighing against resolution. I mean, Howard Dean was unable to, despite some effort, to impose some order on the process. And a lot of this mess, I don't know how he could have avoided it, but this table was set a long time ago, and there were some missed opportunities to get some clarity. And I think if he had the ability to muscle through a better process, he would have done it. And you have, who else could bring order to this? I mean, Harry Reid in the Senate, he's got to work with these 2 people, so he can't, bring the hammer down. Nancy Pelosi's also got a difficult situation with royalties and whatnot. So, and obviously Bill Clinton has something of a vested interest in the outcome. So there's a limited number of people who can bring order to this process. And I just think the candidates themselves are going to be so worried about uncertainty that it's very hard to envision something that would make all the parties happy.
It's going to be very dramatic. Lindsay has someone in the front row here.
And when you think about it, there's no, ranking sort of senior member of the party who could, sort of call the parties together.
It is the kind of thing that former presidents are usually called on to do, but in this case...
this could happen, but I think her comeback in Ohio and Texas, again, froze everything. So if these senior people in the party even had a mind to act, if Al Gore or someone of that stature, if you had a meeting between Gore, Reid, and Pelosi and said, this is what we suggest, but even Pelosi came, backed off a little bit. So.
And they don't. Gore's the obvious best positioned figure, but he doesn't want to. He's got one shot in that gun to try to solve this, and if he shoots it at the wrong time, he's going to look foolish, and it's not going to work. I mean, I think right now no one could impose a solution, right? Because
I don't think anyone has thought of the solution. So that would be another issue.
That's amazing. Yes, sir.
How successful would a debate be with McCain of the two Democratic candidates?
Great question.
Can McCain stand ground with either of the two Democratic candidates?
Yes, because they do it all the time in the Senate. What is historic, of the many historic parts of this 2008 contest, is that the next president will be a senator, a former senator, and you haven't had that since Kennedy. So in terms of a sparring, Obama and McCain had a lot of back and forth early in 2005, and I had a little sample of it.
Boy, did they.
Yeah, it was a dust-up over who said what concerning some ethics legislation. I would think that you're dealing with three of the most accomplished political figures on our scene now. Debate isn't Obama's strongest format, but he has done a lot better as the debates have gone on. So I would think, think of it this way: it's kind of it'll just be a different genre. It's just like different kinds of movies. You can't compare a Broadway musical to a cowboy movie. If McCain debates Clinton, it's kind of a different genre than if McCain debates Obama. But it still doesn't mean it can't be a blockbuster event.
That's great. And Hillary Clinton's great problem is that she agrees with Obama on too much. I mean, right? If we mapped it out, certainly if you map out their voting record, I would bet they voted. The area of agreement is close to 99%.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So she, in these debates, and each day on the trail, what she will try to do is find something that Obama said, which might make him look inconsistent or dishonest or hypocritical, and so she can use it as an illustrative point about his character. But then, if someone in the press, such as myself, were to ask for a follow-up, we might say, but Senator Clinton, you voted the same way. You agree with him, don't you? So she's really got one hand behind her back. John McCain doesn't have that problem. John McCain is very smart and very quick on his feet and has been around a long time, and he can talk about experience in a way that I think would raise the stakes from the things Senator Clinton has said, certainly on foreign policy. And he can say a totally different range of things to Senator Obama. What is your experience as far as making a crucial trade deal like I've done? Or you talk about you've got plans for the military, but you haven't met with a fraction of the amount of generals I've met with, been to the amount of countries I've been to. So he can really take it to Senator Obama in a whole new way.
Anything else? Mark has someone in the middle there. Professor Loomis.
You've got a woman, you've got an African American, and you've got an old white guy. Talk about we've talked a lot about race and gender in this campaign, but as I see some of the polling data, age may have be a bigger factor than either gender or race. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Want to start, Tom?
Yeah, we can talk about what happened in Iowa. I think Iowa validated Senator Obama in a way that the country wasn't necessarily expecting, in that the state is vastly white and has a very, very small minority population, yet he got a plurality of the support. But as we've seen in these subsequent contests, where there has been a large Latino population that has come in competition with the African American vote, that obviously wasn't the case in Iowa. What you did see in Iowa that has been reflected down the road is the tendency of people in the 55 and older range to generally support Senator Clinton. And the more I found following the subsequent contests, the more the states had active and really well organized younger voters. They were spilling into the polls in favor of Senator Obama. I think that it's sort of it's kind of a metaphor for the whole race, that if the momentum becomes on the side of that group that is supporting Senator Clinton, the older kind of the institutional Democrats, that's what's going to prevail. I know this sounds kind of duh, but what's been impressive and what started out in Iowa is that young people got involved. Their momentum has been maintained, and I think it's all going to come down to them if they stay engaged, if they don't lose heart.
Well, what you've had here has been a evolving series of experiments as to how the Democratic Party is aligning and realigning itself in different states, starting with Iowa. And you have now, I think, a bit of a hardening with the Hispanic vote, drifting towards Clinton, and turnout being increased, an overwhelming, commanding 80% plus African American vote with Obama, but in some places the turnout not equaling to Hispanic. And then, of course, the gender issue that came and went. Female voters helped Clinton win in Iowa and Texas in a way that they weren't there to help her in some of the other states. But you do have gender divides, we have age divides within the Democratic Party, ethnic divides, income divides, education divides. Those are some pretty raw divides for a party to have in the way it is, meaning the context of this very historic period we're in, where you're either going to have an African-American nominee or female. And you would think at this historic moment that this would be maybe different, but it's not. That's why whoever is the nominee is going to have to go through, I think, more of a healing process than we might think, because, again, as these races have gone by, these base groups have hardened, base vote groups. And it doesn't necessarily mean, by the way, that anything is bad. It just means that that Clinton appeals to some people and Obama appeals to another. This doesn't necessarily have to be cast in a downbeat or negative way. Like, oh my God, can you imagine, people are voting along gender and racial lines. Oh, okay. But the way it's kind of evolving is fascinating, because it hasn't been that way in every state and every race, and certainly the caucus votes are, a little different too because of the way that they break down. So to answer your question, Professor, I think that you do have these divides. They do have to be surmounted and bridged for whoever is the nominee, but I think they're real and they're there.
I'll just add, Bird, that one good thing about the prolonged campaign is we get to look at each state through the process and see how the coalitions change and how people's support goes up and it goes down. And then in each state there's a different group that can deliver and that makes the difference. And I think we're going to have the answer to your question on April 22nd, because we all think about Florida as the place for retirement, but I believe Pennsylvania is number 3 for people over 65, and it's like in the top 5 of the oldest states in the union. So that's a state that for Clinton it looks a lot like like Ohio in many ways, but it's actually more favorable to her. It's a little bit whiter, it's a little bit older, The economies are kind of similar, so
The governor's fully behind her.
he's fully behind her. So that's another state that could be tailor-made for Clinton. And so if she can get those older voters to turn out, and if she can shift the issue terrain back onto, say, Social Security, where she had some traction early on, actually back in Iowa, going at Senator Obama for some ideas he's floated on changes in the system, they could be the decisive group.
Lindsay, next question.
Part of what's made Obama so special for a lot of people is this positive message of hope and change. The last couple of days, I've noticed he's starting to get a little more negative and going after Clinton. Do you think he has to go negative? And if so, how do you think that's going to play out to some voters?
Might be a better question for you.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Well, there's a difference that is often said by many of the people around Obama between going negative and just drawing a contrast. Do you think that raising questions about her lack of disclosing her income tax, do you think that's negative or a contrast? Right. I'm just curious, what would you cite as something Obama has done that is negative?
Well, I just noticed that things are starting to come out.
No, like what thing? What would be it?
Well, today I was reading CNN, and I'm kind of on the spot now, so I can't think of something off the top of my head. But I know his campaign's starting to demand that she start talking about her foreign experience more.
Now, is that negative or a contrast?
It's a contrast.
But you just said negative.
Okay. You think he's going to go negative? Like
I think
Hillary,
he will go
will he
heavy
throw the
contrast.
Will he throw the kitchen sink?
Well, he's the kitchen table. She's the sink, because that's how that's a metaphor that his campaign prefers. Table has a platform, 4 legs, consistent and steady. In some ways, Obama has, and I can't think of the direct mail piece. And by the way, if you really want to know what's going on in these campaigns, you look at the direct mail that you get in your mailboxes. That tells you, because they never tell reporters, it's one of the biggest secrets, what the direct mail is, the targeted direct mail. And the virtue that the Des Moines paper had is that they knew what was in the mailboxes of their readers.
Because they were in our mailboxes.
Yeah.
Right. And so they got that early. So there's a piece, and I can't remember it, so I don't want to say it in a public forum, where I thought Senator Obama went pretty far in drawing a contrast on something, but...
Was it the Iran vote where he wasn't present? He was in New Hampshire. It was about Clinton. Yeah.
And what was that one again?
That was right after the... remind me what the policy vote on Iran was.
Was whether the Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization.
Right. Where he, in the mail piece, was saying that he opposed that while Senator Clinton supported it. Well, he wasn't even there.
He wasn't there and he never voted.
He wasn't there, didn't vote. Yet,
He might have still opposed it.
I'm sure he did.
But anyway, so part of this is who said what first. If to avoid getting the stain of negativity. Actually, I think as politics go, just demanding that someone put out their tax return, it's kind of run-of-the-mill. I mean, that's...
Well, but he's also brought up, in retaliation for the Clinton campaign raising questions about Tony Rezko, he has said, well, Senator Clinton, maybe you don't want to go there talking about land deals, and that's code for whitewater. And so that's what he's signaling. I don't think what he did was below the belt necessarily.
Right, not yet, yeah.
But he's saying, look out, if you raise this stuff about me, I know how to hit back.
And here's something, though, that is interesting how he handles it. And this is part of my ongoing dialogue with the Obama campaign. And that is, if I'm asking you about Tony Rezko, if I'm asking you where your fundraisers are being held and who the hosts are, to me an answer isn't necessarily, does Senator Clinton tell you about her fundraisers? That is a virtuous question to ask, and the answer is, to me usually is, well, first, can you help me out because I cover you? Tell me about you. By trying to deflect something put on him, by then saying, well, I know you want me to talk about Tony Rezko, but in the meantime, what about your tax returns, is a tactic. And I wonder, I presume people understand the tactic for what it is.
Yeah.
And it will be interesting to see if, and it probably will be to a degree because we're talking about tax returns now. These conversations can be swayed easily by what he says. He might not have to go further than he did, and just kind of raising a specter, alluding to something. But I just want, in terms of how you watch these campaigns, in terms of how reporters report on them, I try to be orderly sometimes and say, this one question was raised about your tax returns, Senator Clinton. Why can't you just, for example, Xerox what you did for 2006 and hand them out? We don't necessarily need, we can wait for 2000.
But you know what the toughest part of the question was? And I don't think we, the grizzled cynics on the stage or
I'm not
here.
a cynic.
Okay,
I am
well,
not a cynic.
but the reason why, people here can understand why sometimes if you don't win the nomination, you suck it up and you take the vice presidency. And people here understand that if someone attacks you, goes negative on you, you have to draw contrast with them. What I don't know, and I'll have to ask my student workers and my other students here, is like, you're new to this process. You think Senator Obama's doing something being done for the first time, running a positive campaign, it's about the future, it's visionary, it's optimistic, whatever. Are you going to stay home if he gets down in the gutter and starts slinging with Senator Clinton and Senator McCain and the 527s that are going to come at him as sure as night follows day?
Also, some of this, I'm not actually sure, and it remains to be seen. Part of how you do it is, it's an art. If Obama just says, as Geoff said, if Obama just says the word whitewater, is that bad, or is it just saying, I just said whitewater? It depends kind of what you do with it. I'm just curious, in a show of hands, if he brings up whitewater, is that negative to any of you think? A few. Is that a negative on him? Would you think that's negative on him?
But he has a serious dilemma that I think you've put your finger on. And if I had to guess, I would say his campaign is having some really rough meetings right now trying to figure out what to do. Because of all the exit poll data that I read, the most telling one was from Texas, which said that the people who made up their decision in the last 3 days, like 65% of them went for Clinton. And so what that says to me is that her attacks on his, or
3 a.m.
I won't say attacks, the 3 a.m. red phone call, the questions about his readiness to lead as commander-in-chief struck a chord. And so she's going to do more of that. And so his choice is, he responded, and he responded pretty well, but he didn't, I'm sure he could do more to change the subject and to go after her. And if he does, he's going to be very open to charges that it's just the same old politics.
And don't forget that we're at a critical point in the campaign, and this is where these third-party groups do step in, and they could say and do things that the candidate may not want to do on their own. These third-party groups are more or less, the true third-party groups are supposed to be working independently of the campaigns, but you don't have to coordinate with the campaign to know, well, I know what the public record is of Senator Clinton, maybe I will review it for the public. It may not fit in, by the way, with the master strategy of what the campaign wants, but there's people out there that might do it nonetheless.
I can't believe this, but we only have time for one more question.
Can we have a speed round?
Yeah, we can.
Yes.
Do you have a question already picked out, Mark?
I'll be fast.
No hand raising, though. I'm like Fred Thompson, no hand raising.
I have a stupid question to ask. Do you think this gender and race issue in Democratic Party, it's a blessing or curse? Or supplementary to this question, like which Democratic candidate, like Clinton or Obama, would be proved more, you can say, tough guy to John McCain in last elections?
Well, I have great sympathy for the candidates in this era because I have a suspicion that in the old days, and I don't know when those were exactly, but you could fly under the radar a little more, and you could go to Iowa and you could say something about ethanol, and then you could campaign in New York and talk one way on trade or in Texas, but then when you go to the Rust Belt in Ohio, you could hone your message a little bit and get away with it. In this day and age, everything is so magnified. We've got bloggers to catch every slip up, and this is the race. It's a global race. Everybody's watching it. So it's very tough. And on race in particular, it's very hard to tailor a message and hit your target groups. and this country is it's so diverse, but it's not uniformly diverse. You know, you have some states where the Democratic electorate is 50% African American, practically, like in Mississippi, and some in Idaho where it's virtually non-existent. So I don't know how they do it. It's a tough situation.
I'll just quickly touch on Iowa again. It was the fact that that he did so well in a vastly white state that I think I think a lot of people were struck by that. But take that Iowa electorate on caucus night where you had 240,000 Democrats go to caucus, which was almost like a primary. And in those caucuses, Senator Obama's strength broke down very evenly across the strata of caucus voters, which means he did really well among older voters. He did really well among younger voters. He did well among independents. So, you know, just look the Iowa-centric universe that I have. I can't help.
Don't you know Pennsylvania is the new Iowa?
Well, then I might win my war with irrelevance by moving to Pennsylvania. I just think that the caucuses set in motion something that sort of defies race.
Yeah. I see Representative Ballard actually had an urgent question in the back. Am I right about that? Thanks, Lizzie. This will be the last question. Richard, you'll have to ask yours in person. Sir.
Yes, thanks so much for taking one last question. This has been a fascinating event for a political junkie like me. My question concerns something I've been puzzling over the last couple days in looking at the exit poll numbers from Ohio, where the exit poll reflected the double-digit popular vote win for Hillary Clinton, but the same respondents, a majority of them said that they thought Obama would be a stronger general election candidate against McCain. And as was pointed out earlier by Geoff, it's not a situation like McCain and Huckabee where, you know, one of them's off the reservation, you know, the Democratic reservation. So why would a significant slice of Ohio Democrats vote for someone that they think is a weaker candidate in the general election?
I'll take one.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
I don't know, but there's a tangent to that maybe. But I think there's so much talk about race in the election that we're not talking about the very powerful gender factor that I see certainly anecdotally on the trail, talking to a lot of people. I mean, the history making of Hillary Clinton's candidacy is also tremendous. And I know she did very well among women, and I know they're a big chunk of the electorate. Certainly I could see a lot of women out there feeling a real, not just as a desire to vote for Senator Clinton, but a real sense that they don't want to sit this one out, that this is a big chance and they don't want to miss it. And so in a Democratic primary, you vote your heart for either candidate and then deal with the consequences.
And certainly I have colleagues and friends who say, you know, I like Obama a lot, but when am I going to get a chance to vote for a woman again? Because there's not that huge a backbench. I think it's a pretty good answer. Any other thoughts? Because I know we have to travel.
Trying to wrap it down.
Thank you so much, panel, and I really appreciate you coming. Fantastic job.
Thank you.